Alrighty guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're working on our exhaust valve on the KTM 125. It's going to be fun. We're going to button this head up and get it ready to install. Now this, it's not a complicated process to put this valve together, but it has to be timed correctly. You've got to clean up your parts. You've got to do a couple things that just make it, really sweet when you're done with it. After we get done doing this, the next move will be to install the top end, which will be our piston rings, cylinder head, and we'll be pretty much done. Oh, and adjust our exhaust valve. So we're getting there, but let's get into this exhaust valve. Let's get this thing installed. If you guys are just joining me, go check out the KTM build series. I'll put a card right up here for you guys to click on and see how this bike's coming along. We're making some progress. Okay, before we get started, what we are actually working on is the exhaust valve of the motor here. Now, mine has been vapor honed, so it is as clean as it's ever going to be, cleaner than factory, and it looks amazing. So shout out to Josh for doing such a great job of vapor honing. He really killed it. Here's our parts here, everything laid out, everything cleaned up. Now, if you're wondering how I got everything so dang clean, that is the danmx cleaning wheels, and that is right there. So we've got Scotch-Brite wheels, and they are responsible for, touching everything up. So go check those out at danmx.com. And then here we've got our exhaust cover plate. We've got our bolt hardware for the outside of the motor. We've got 2 bolts here, our gaskets that we need, and then our vent hose. So this is everything that we need. I've got my literature up here just in case I need it, but pretty simple process. I'll walk you guys through it. Alright guys, we're going to get started on this thing here. I got me some 2-stroke oil, got me my feeler gauge and some Loctite here, and then I'm going to need my 8mm T-handle. And that should be pretty much everything you need here to do this entire exhaust valve setup. Now, I got the cylinder flipped over because I think it's going to be easier if I do it that way. But the first thing we're going to install is going to be our actual exhaust gate, if you want to call it that. Make sure you get this cleaned up really well, because this piece, over time, this is what gets all the buildup from the exhaust on it. So you definitely want to make sure it's clean. Now the way it's installed is the cupped side goes up if the cylinder is upside down like I have it, and it would just slide in just like so. Alright, just let it slide all the way in. The next piece we have are our, I don't know what you call these, pivot bolts. And these are what the exhaust valve pivots on. So these will go through the cylinder like so, and then the exhaust valve will pivot on them. So I've got these all shined up, cleaned up, and I'm just going to put a little bit of 2-stroke oil in the O-rings here. Now, the reason I'm using 2-stroke oil on this and not like assembly lube or something like that is because this entire exhaust valve setup is exposed to 2-stroke oil, so it makes sense to use that. So, and I'm going to go ahead and lube up the shaft of each of these bolts here. So, okay, and then they will run through these holes right here, and make sure you got the O-ring on, obviously, and then go ahead and start threading them in. One on that side, and of course the other one. Alright, now I have already tried this and set this up for the sake of video purposes. Now, what the manual says is this exhaust valve, if you can see it, I can, well, let's see, there we go. I can move it left and right, just like that. The tolerance that you want to have between the wall of the exhaust port and the actual valve itself is, what was it, well, I got my feeler gauge out right here. It was 0.008 inches or 0.2 millimeters. That's the distance you want to have. I kind of pre-measured it ahead of time and figured out about where it's at, and it turned out to be really awesome, because all you have to do is run these bolts in until the head of the bolt, or the flat side of the bolt, is flush with the aluminum of the cylinder. So about right there. So now if I were to tip this up, you can see that the bolt itself is flush with the aluminum on the cylinder. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that on both sides. Like I said, I've already checked this out beforehand, so I know what is correct and what is not, and that seems to be about perfect. That gives me that 0.2 millimeters of tolerance that I need. So we've got that done. Next thing we're going to do is install our little brackets here, and that is these. They're keepers, I guess, and they slip right over the bolt head and then line up right there, and that keeps your bolt from spinning, backing out, anything like that. And I am going to put some blue Loctite on that to keep it from backing out. Now that is these two 6 millimeter bolts here. Get a little bit on there. Doesn't have to be a lot, just has to be a little. We'll go ahead and thread those, get those in. This cylinder being vapor honed, all this is just gonna look awesome when it's done. So clean and shiny. Okay, and I'm just gonna go finger tight or hand tight on these. There's one side. Let's do the other side. Now, like I said, I just cleaned these up on the danmx wheels. Made it very easy to get all my bolts, all the cover plates, everything like that, just nice and shiny. So Cameron really has a good thing going on with those cleaning wheels for us DIY moto guys. Okay, that's done. All right, so at this point our exhaust valve is hinged and within tolerance. All right, now we're going to flip it over and move on to the next part. Okay, the next piece that we are looking at here is going to be this guy right here. This latches into the exhaust valve. Let me just get this started and it'll make a little more sense. But it's threaded in the top, and you want to take one of your 6 mil bolts, thread it in the top there, and that will allow you to install it and control it at the same time. When you put this in, you've got to turn it at an angle and then lock it in. So it won't just go straight in because it is a locking mechanism. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil on it. I'll show you what I mean here as far as how it goes. This, when I took this out, I did not know how it came out, and I was tugging and pulling and picking and all kinds of stuff trying to figure it out. And then when I did, I was like, oh, okay, well, let me put it back in and record it. That way it makes sense to everybody. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, you can see the exhaust valve has fallen. All right, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn this, I'm going to insert it, and once I get it down, it should just turn right in once it mates up with the exhaust valve. So right there. Okay, so now as you see, when I pull up and down on that, the exhaust valve moves. And if you can see inside this hole right here, you can see where that spot is. It has a tab in it. Okay, that is for our next piece to join into. Okay, so leave the bolt in right now because you can't technically remove it. I mean, I guess you could try, but it's very difficult. All right, we're going to get our next piece here, and that is going to be this guy. It looks kind of like a camshaft. Pretty cool little design there. Let me make sure my camera's focused. There we go. Okay, a little bit of lube on it. And this little button there, that little pin, that's what inserts into that slot on our previous piece. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try to get this angle so you guys can see, is I can play with it with the bolt in, and I can take this, slide it right inside, and get it to fit in the hole. There we go. So now when I move that bolt up and down, see how that whole exhaust valve moves. So pretty stinking cool. The design of this KTM exhaust valve is really cool. It is very impressive. So okay, I think that's right. I think my timing is right. All right, so that's almost straight up and down where it should be. Now, I'm not really worried about that right now because I do have to time everything, so if I need to remove that again, I can. but that's kind of where it's supposed to be. Okay, let's move on to our next parts. Alright, the next thing we need to install is going to be these pieces right here. And there's two of them, one for each side. They go in like so, and they are different, okay? One has two timing marks on it, and the other one has a single timing mark on it. So, let me show you what I'm talking about here. If you look, I've got the timing marks facing each other. Hold on. There we go. So this one has two right here. You can see it on the gears. This one has one. The way it goes is the one with two will go over here on this side to the right, and then it just inserts right inside the hole here. Now, like I said, make sure these are all polished and cleaned up, because that helps immensely in keeping these things from wearing out, and also installation, because they do get gummed up really bad as they're serving their purpose in the motorcycle. Okay, next we have these little teeny tiny collars right here, okay, and these go right on these pins. There's 3 pins. These are spacers and kind of almost like a little roller bearing. So I'm going to go ahead and just put these on where they go. And I guess I should clarify this. You can see they have a larger side and a smaller side, okay? When we're going on with them for the first time, the larger side goes down. The larger side of the collar goes down, all right? You don't want to get that mixed up, or else your exhaust valve will not function correctly. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3 collars on my shafts. Now the next thing is going to be our actual I don't know what you call this, valve mechanism, our timing mechanism. And you can see we've got 2 lines there that made up with our timing marks on that side. We got 1 here and 1 up there, so it's pretty self-explanatory. Now this sits right on those collars, or those little bushing looking deals that we just installed. So in order to do this, you're going to need a screwdriver, and you're literally just going to spin these until you get all the timing marks lined up where they're supposed to be. Okay, so this might take me a minute just to kind of get these timed in. So once I get them timed in, I'll take the camera and I'll get it to where you guys can see what I'm talking about. That way you get it timed correctly on your side. So I've got 2 of them timed right now. Let's see if I can get this third one in the right spot. So, okay, that should be it. Yes, it is. That is perfect. Okay, let me get the camera off the tripod and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, there we go. So if you can see over here, we've got 1 dot and our line. Those are timed together. We've got 1 dot and our line. Those are timed correctly. And then over here, if the camera will focus, there we go. We've got 2 dots and 2 lines, and they are timed correctly. So as of now, our exhaust valve is timed correctly, and you can actually rotate this and see what it's going to do. So see that? All right, it's kind of hard to do one-handed here, but that is timed correctly. So make sure you get that right before you go on with the rest of the install. All right, before we get too carried away, I'm going to add just a little bit of 2-stroke oil right here to these little bushings, and also to my gears, just to give them a head start here on a startup and first time being ran since the rebuild. Okay, now that that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to take our remaining 3 bushings, and they go the opposite way onto the pins. So now we're going with the the larger side facing towards us, and what that does is that kind of traps that whole mechanism together inside of those pins. Okay, so after we get that, we're going to take our little plate here, and it goes right over the top, and you can't mistake where it goes. It only goes in one spot. So just like so. And then for us, our 2 dirty bolts, our 2 shorter 6mm bolts, they will go right in there. I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these before I put them in. Alright, and I'm just going to go hand tight with these because they are Loctited in. Alright, that's done. Now I can get a little more Western with this. So you can see there, as I rotate this, my exhaust valve is working the way that it should. Ain't that the coolest design ever? I think this thing is pretty sweet. Okay, now at this point I can remove my bolt where I've kind of left it in order to, you know, help myself install there. And we'll tip this back up, and we're going to install our gasket and our exhaust cover plate. So that is going to be this guy right here. It only goes on one direction. And then we've got our exhaust plate here. Okay, now when putting these on, notice these 2 little dimples here, or openings, I guess you want to call it. There are 2 exhaust valve springs, keepers, brackets, whatever you want to call them. They go one right there and one right there, and that allows you to hook your exhaust valve springs up when you put your pipe on. And then I'm just going to go snug up on these from the inside out. I'm going to do my middle ones first and then my outers. Okay, the last thing we need to install are the covers for the sides. We're only going to do one, and I'll show you why. Before we can put that guy on, we've got our gasket right here, or sorry, other one right here, or nope, sorry, other one, first one right here, and it goes on just like so. All right, and again, just gonna go hand tight on these, nothing crazy. I will I don't know if I should put a little blue on these or not, but for now I don't think I'm gonna. I think I'm just gonna get these snugged in. These kind of paper gaskets that we have here, they leave a little bit of room for, I guess, kind of expansion and torque that way. So I don't really worry too much about Loctiting things like this, just because you get some crush on these paper gaskets that kind of help keep the bolts in, keep them tight. Okay, that one's done. Now on the other side here, we can't quite button this side up because right here is how we're going to time our exhaust valve. You know what? Screw it. Let's do it. Let's time this sucker right now and be done with it. And then we don't have to worry about it again. Now, I'm not going to install the top end, but let's time it. Let's see if we can do that. I think we can time it without using the gasket. So let me get the motor up here, and we'll do this. We'll knock this out of the park real fast. Oh, son of a... That thing's heavy. All right, guys. So what I was talking about was actually timing this arm right here so that our exhaust valve is set up the way it should be stock. So that's your standard setting, okay? Now a couple things here. Before you can make any adjustments to that, you need to back off this little 8mm head right here. You need to back this screw off because there is, if you guys watched my previous video, there's a little rubber guy that goes in there that helps keep this, there we go, keep this from spinning. So now that I've got that backed off, what I can do here is I can take this and I can rotate this. And what it'll do is it'll move this arm. If you pay attention to that arm, it's moving as I turn that. That's going to time our exhaust valve. All right. So without having our base gasket on, obviously it's going to be just a little bit off, but this is a tunable feature of the motor. So just like on the Hondas and any other bike, you can tune in your exhaust valve settings to give you a little bit more power or a little bit less, you know, in different areas of the power band range. So we're going to take our cylinder, let's throw it right on top here of the old motor, and make sure that our piece lines up where it should. So actually, I'll show you guys this real quick, and then I'll change my camera angle. So this slot here needs to fit this arm right here, okay? So make sure that when it goes on, that it fits in there nicely. All right. So right now I'm not even close, so I've got to move this over just a hair, like that. We're gonna drop her down just a hair. Okay, there we go. That will not slide on if that's not adjusted correctly. So, all right, so now that we've got that done, I'm gonna turn the motor around without dropping it, preferably. All right, guys, so I'm showing you that open cover on the ignition side of the motor, and right there is our that arm that joined those three gears together. That's our exhaust valve component right there. Now here is that actual cover plate, or that cover that went over it, all right? And this is used for timing marks. Now, as you can see, there's one mark right up here, one mark down here, and then one mark there. So it's kind of hard for you guys to see. I can see that. But what I'm going to show you is when you adjust this nut on the other side, you can see the mark on the right side moving. Okay, that is your timing on your exhaust valve. Now, there's a specific way that KTM says that you need to adjust this using a dial indicator and things like that. But what I've learned when doing my research is that as long as this bottom mark here, or sorry, this top mark here, is the bottom of the top mark is flush with the top of this mark here, you're going to be good to go. So let me just adjust it and show you what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more here. It doesn't get any better. Right there seems to be the best. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust it and show you where it needs to stop. So right now I'm turning out on it, and right about there is where you need to be. That's where your adjustment needs to be. So as long as you're there, that should be pretty dang close to stock. And again, I don't have my cylinder gasket here or anything like that, but that's adjusted. So I'm going to turn the motor back around, we're going to lock that in, and we're going to leave that, and we'll double check it before we're done, completely done with the motor build. All right, so what I was turning was this right here, so I'm just going to show you, just like so. Okay, the only reason I'm able to turn that again is because I loosened this bolt right here, which acts as a stop so that doesn't move. Now, I said I would double check this when we get done with the motor build, but to be honest, this is an adjustable feature on the bike, so even if I were to be one way or the other just a little bit, it's not going to hurt anything at all. So probably just leave it the way it is. Okay, thread your cap on and lock it down. All right, and the last thing we have here is the gasket to that cover plate right there. Now this one holds a vent line, a breather line, sorry, and I'm not going to attach the breather line quite yet until I get my cylinder installed on the bottom end. Okay, so again, I'm just going to go hand tight on these, and that wraps up our exhaust valve build on the cylinder. Kind of fun. I really am enjoying this KTM and the way that it's different from a Jap bike. Okay, now this right here is your breather line, and it will thread in just like this. I'm actually going to put it in now, just so I don't lose it. All right, and that's it. Okay guys, that wraps up another video. These little segmented series that I'm doing them on purpose. That way if somebody can search out, you know, KTM 125 exhaust valve rebuild, then they can go ahead and find it. So that's why these videos come out the way they do. I could just do the full motor rebuild in one big long video. It'd be like an hour and a half long, but that's why we're doing the segmented videos. So those of you that are looking forward to the engine build, hopefully these are helping you. Thank you for watching. We're coming along well. Please subscribe if you haven't. Give me a thumbs up. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.